I'd like to welcome to Funda Medical a colleague, a senior practicing attorney of over 35 years, an accredited mediator, a person who has sat on the bench and acted as a judge in the Gauteng division, a good friend of Funda Medical, Mr. Donnie Vaderman. Welcome.
Thank you,
It's a pleasure
Andrew.
to have you here.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for that. Now, I know we're here to discuss the topic, what does the court expect in a default judgment application? I'd just like to preface that what we've seen now in recent times, there's been a trend and an upsurge of applications being brought to court for default judgment. And especially in the RAF landscape, where the Road Accident Fund is the defendant and the claimants are looking for justice, looking for their claims to be dealt with. Can you just give us a short explanation why that is?
Why the claims have been brought forward?
Yes, why we've got an...
Well, a lot of it's got to do with the effect of the mediation protocol. And once the mediation protocol has been installed, since that came into effect, the trial dates were simply removed from the roll, and you can now get a trial date only once you've mediated. And a lot of matters finalize in the mediation process. Alternatively, where there are failures from the Road Accident Fund side to participate, you can then proceed to the default judgment court.
So this now gives access to a claimant to fast track his or her claim according to the rules of court and what's available to them. Now, in order to do that, you'd expect a legal representative for a claimant to comply with the rules and regulations, with the rules that govern, whether they're High Court rules or directives of a particular division, more so Pretoria and Johannesburg, where it's quite prolific. We have the application. What have you seen from your experience generally, the standard of the applications that are being brought to court for default judgment?
Yeah. Andrew, as I said to you earlier, I have since the beginning of 2024 spent a total of 42 weeks as an acting judge in the South Gauteng High Court. During that time, I've processed in excess of 2,500 RAF default judgment matters. It's not rocket science. And the frustrating thing in reading the paperwork is the amount of procedural errors that are made by attorneys. You know, the saying is, good paper makes for good friends.
Yes.
And it starts with following the practice directives and following the rules of court. And that seems to be where the problem starts. The practice directives requires the attorney to take certain steps. For example, that all the documentation must be available, that all the documents must be on case lines, and then you apply for your default judgment trial date. That frequently does not happen in practice. The practice directive sets out how an expert report should be compiled, including numbered paragraphs. There's Rule 36(9)B, which requires the expert in the report to indicate that the expert performed the evaluation, that the report is written by the expert, and that it is for the assistance of the court. That simply does not happen. In many instances, the legal practitioner would prepare the application for default judgment, prepare the affidavit, file the application for default judgment, and then after that, proceed and obtain a number of medico-legal reports. So how do you bring an application for default judgment on evidence that did not exist at the time that you signed the affidavit applying for default judgment. These are procedural matters that complicate the process, and which can all be resolved simply by applying a trained legal mind to every aspect of the process. When an acting judge or a judge opens a matter on case lines, the very first thing that they do is go and look at the practice note, because they need to know what is in dispute. What are the issues? Because frequently the practice note would also give some guidance as to which documentation needs to be read. If that document has been prepared by somebody in the attorney's office who does not really understand the importance of the document, and the attorney did not check it, that document frequently is in conflict with itself. It will start off, for example, saying that the issue in dispute is quantum, and then later on it will say it's merits and quantum, or it would say that there are certain concessions, but by the time you get to counsel's heads of argument, it seems that that's not the case. So making sure that the practice note has been looked at by a trained legal mind is a good way to start, because that puts the court in a process to know exactly where to go and what to look for.
Yeah, I think that's right. And then from my experience, and obviously yours, you do need an attorney who's basically had a relationship with a particular claimant and with the matter, sometimes for years, to give credence to the rules of court and what is required, and to pay respect to the court and its directives and its rules. So if you're not ready, first get ready and then come and bring your application. Shouldn't that be the modus operandi?
Absolutely. You know, when I look at my role, I can see when the application for default judgment was made, and obviously I know which week the matter is being heard in. And in South Gauteng at least, I'm not sure what the position is in Pretoria, frequently that's a 4, 6, maximum 8-week period between applying for a date and being in the default judgment court. So there's no reason why you can't make sure that all your documentation and all your paperwork is in order before you apply for a date.
Absolutely. And the other aspect is that when you have a judge sitting there going through these papers, ultimately the claimant's there for justice, and that's what a judicial officer to do as well, give justice to a claim. But should they tolerate subpar or substandard work when it comes to the papers, or must they be told, go away, get your papers in order and come back when you're ready?
I think that our legal system is still governed by the stare decisis principle. And the Supreme Court of Appeal very clearly has said that you are bound by your pleadings. And there's a whole body of law on this very aspect. You are bound by your pleadings. So how does a judicial officer sitting as a single judge in a default judgment court deal with a matter where on the pleadings, in the particulars of claim, there's 2 injuries and the amount is for 800,000. The heads of argument presented by counsel is for 5.5 million with a 1.5 type page list of injuries. Sitting there, you can't, no matter how much sympathy you have for that poor person, you cannot allow the matter to proceed because you are bound by your pleadings. Your pleadings set out what the case is that you are presenting. And the fact that it's a default judgment matter makes it no different. You have to look, by the time all your medical legal reports are in, by the time your actuarial calculation is in, you have to revisit your particulars of claim. You have to make sure, are all the injuries are in there? Are the correct amounts in there? And if they're not, you need to deal with that before you file your application for default judgment and before you bring the matter before court.
Absolutely, and I found, and I'm sure you, from your experience and what you've seen as well, is that it's not a rubber stamping process. The fact that an application is brought in a default judgment court doesn't guarantee that you're going to be successful. I think we've seen a trend, and it's more recent, like yourself and other judges as well, and acting judges too. They are more meticulous in working through the papers and see where the shortcomings are. And I think that's expected. They've got to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It has become also the norm in the default judgment court to present evidence on affidavit. There would inevitably be a Rule 38.2 application for the expert evidence to be heard on affidavit, and there will be affidavits filed from the experts in confirmation of their reports. However, that rule only deals with evidence on affidavit. So if the aspect of liability is also in dispute, negligence, then your application has to go further. You can't then say my application is in terms of Rule 38.2 and I also want to include the OAR and the Section 19F affidavit and the witness statements, because there's no provision for it. So the application has to go further, and you have to look at the Law of Evidence Amendment Act or Civil Evidence Proceedings Amendment Act and see under which of those you can bring the documents into the application. But it doesn't end there, because neither of those pieces of legislation nor Rule 38 makes provision for photographs, sketches. That needs to be dealt with in terms of Rule 38.10. It's not rocket science. It's simple.
3610.
Yeah.
Yes.
3610. And you need to file a Rule 3610 at some point with your photographs and sketches, and then they are not dealt with as part of your application in the default judgment process, because they are properly before court.
On that, the 38.2, we have a situation where an application is brought to court and the court is requested to hear the evidence or to deal with the matter on the papers by way of affidavit. Does the mere fact that an expert, on the quantum side, sign an affidavit that forms part of that application, does that absolve the expert completely? Does the court not have a discretion to say, well, I need more from the expert, or I in fact feel that I need to hear viva voce evidence?
Look, the wording of the rule says that evidence can be given on affidavit if it's convenient, but the rule also says that the court can at any stage ask for the evidence to be given in person, and if it is a situation where cross-examination is possible or appropriate, then anybody entitled to cross-examine can also ask for the evidence to be given in person. So the fact that an expert says, this is my report, does not mean that that's the end of the matter. The court can always ask, and I have in a number of instances, said to counsel that this or this expert, I'm not satisfied and I'm not willing to allow the evidence to be dealt with on affidavit, and the expert needs to be called.
That situation is good. I think that every expert, when preparing a report, and I believe this, and I think it should be instilled with the experts, that when you write the report, write it on the premise that you will be appearing in a court of law, that you will be appearing before a judge, so that you can motivate your opinion, and that's how they also, it keeps them where they should be on the credibility side of things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is absolutely correct. For a different reason, and I'm a digital immigrant. I don't speak digital fluently, and yesterday Yesterday I was confronted with a situation I needed to test an AI whatever. And I typed in a search for judgments by myself in which I've rejected industrial psychologists' reports and evidence on the basis that there's no factual foundation. And to my surprise, during 2024 and 2025, I've rejected 14 claims on which I wrote judgments simply because there's no factual foundation for the conclusions reached by an expert. And if that expert were to be called to testify, the expert would have been embarrassed because would have had to admit in open court in front of anybody, and everybody is there, that whatever they said in their conclusions have no factual underbow. There's no factual foundation. So no, it's absolutely, you're perfectly correct. An expert should always draw the report on the basis that if called upon, I need to be able to defend every single paragraph in this report if put to the test in a court. Must be. Can't be anywhere else.
Absolutely, yeah. So basically, what should our message be to other legal practitioners out there and the legal fraternity? We need to up our game. We need to be compliant in applications for default judgment.
I think the message is a simple one. Good paper makes for good friends. There are matters that counsel stands up and it's a question of there's a draft order on case lines. Is there any reason why I can't give the judgment? Because the paperwork is in order. Go and read the practice directives again. Go and read the rules that you use again. Make sure your paperwork is in order and your matters will go quickly and simply. And for the experts, make sure you understand what the format is for your reports, how they should be done. Make sure you comply with the practice directives, which, for example, requires paragraphs to be numbered. Make sure that you have the Rule 36(9)B certificate in your reports. Make sure your paperwork is good. If your paperwork is in order, your matters are going to sail through.
Absolutely. Well, Donnie, thank you. Always a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.